After this video, you're going to have a full essay plan that will fit any Macbeth question that comes up. And if you watch the end, I promise you, you're going to feel so much more confident going into that exam, knowing how you can just basically adapt this to any question that comes up. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to give you a general point and overall idea and then show you how it can link to every single character. So if that character did come up, you can link this idea to it, or if this kind of idea could link to the question, then you can choose which character you would like to choose. So the first thing we're going to look at is the pursuit of unchecked, meaning uncontrollable ambition, inevitably leads to moral corruption as individuals become blinded by desire and therefore transgress, they go against, moral and divine boundaries. So this is kind of a general idea, and the idea that ambition, particularly unchecked, so this uncontrollable ambition, will lead to an individual's demise, so their downfall, because they'll go against everything. They'll go against moral order in terms of what's right and wrong. They will go against divine order, as in what had God set out for them, because they're so blinded by this ambition. Now, how it can link to every single character, of course, we know Macbeth. He embodies this as he commits regicide, killing of the king. He's completely blinded by his ambition, so much so that he commits the ultimate sin, killing of the king. And why it's the ultimate sin is because the king was believed to be ordained by God. And when I say ordained, it means chosen by God. So if you're going to kill the king, you're going against God. And this is why he goes against his moral and divine boundaries. Morally, murder's pretty wrong. Don't think we should be doing that. And then, of course, divine boundaries, going against God. Then Lady Macbeth. Her ambition manifests in her manipulation of Macbeth. So because she is so blinded by this unchecked ambition, this want for him to be king and for her to be queen, she actually manipulates Macbeth into committing regicide. So it's quite similar in the fact that she doesn't commit it, she just encourages him to do that. Banquo. Now remember, Banquo is like Macbeth's bestie and who he ends up getting killed by murderers sent by Macbeth because Macbeth gets all paranoid. He resists the lure, the pull of ambition, and is morally sound. So we could actually invert this and flip this for Banquo in the fact that if you, even with ambition, if you don't indulge in it and you resist it, then you will not become morally corrupt. It's those who give in to ambition, as we see with Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. Arguably, we could say they're actually weaker characters because they give in to temptation, whereas characters like Banquo don't. And then Macduff. He does not have unchecked ambition, but is rooted, he does have unchecked ambition, so he does have this uncontrollable ambition, but it is rooted in justice rather than personal gain. So we can see he's a really good character as a comparison with Macbeth, because although he is very ambitious, and he's a very ambitious character, he doesn't do it for self-fulfillment. He does it for justice, to restore order, whereas Macbeth does it for his own self-gain. And then the witches, they exploit Macbeth's unchecked ambition as they know it is his vulnerability. So how we can kind of link it to this is they actually exploit that because they know that Macbeth's hamartia, so his fatal flaw, is his unchecked ambition. His flaw is his unchecked ambition. They know they can manipulate him in order to basically use him as a bit of a puppeteer, ridicule him, mock him, because they know he will do it. And that's how we can kind of link ambition just generally and link it to the characters Macbeth and Lady Macbeth and how they show that unchecked ambition. Banquo and Macduff, how they're the opposite of it, and the witches, how they manipulate it. And what's really nice as well, if you go onto the Light Up Hub on the Macbeth course, for all of the characters, for example, you can see we've got violence, ambition, key quotes. We've got them for every single one of the characters. So if, for example, for this question, you're thinking, okay, I could link Macbeth and I could link ambition, all you'd have to do is you get generated a completely personal quote just for you. And you'll get the grade 9 quotes, techniques, and analysis, and that's all done for you. Then all you've got to do is remember it and then put it into your essay. And we also even link it to context. We give you grade 9 keywords. We link it to wow ideas. So we basically give you everything written up. All you've got to do is remember it and then put it in. So these kind of essay plans are really helpful as an overall how you would link it, and then you can get the specifics on the Light Up Hub. But because there's not that much time before the exams, if you wanted to, a little cheat code as well, if you go into the last minute revision video, this will basically summarize everything to do with Macbeth in 41 minutes. This goes through keywords, context, literally everything. So if you remember this and pair it with this video, honestly, even if it's last minute, there's no reason why you can't be getting grade 9s. Okay, let's look at some evidence as well that could support that. I'm just going to give you a few quotes which you could use to support the arguments we just made. So Macbeth, I'm settled and bent up. Each corporal aged to this terrible feat. This is Act 1, Scene 7. And this basically shows Macbeth's final decision to murder King Duncan. He's fully surrendering to his ambition. So he's basically saying that there's going to be this terrible feat, these terrible consequences. He's settled. He's made his decision. He's going to kill King Duncan. And he knows he is blindly following his unchecked, so his uncontrollable ambition. And then when you durst do it, then you were a man. This is Act 1, Scene 7, said by Lady Macbeth. So she questions his masculinity to spur him into murdering Duncan, revealing how her ambition drives that manipulation. So as we said, she's very manipulative, and she is basically using this to spur him onto it, using his masculinity against him. And I love talking about the emasculation of Macbeth from Lady Macbeth, which if any of you, like pub members, if you go into anything to do with Lady Macbeth in terms of violence or ambition, we can see and pick some of those quotes, which is such nice analysis as well, and how you can link it for Lady Macbeth. But hush no more, Act 2, Scene 1. So Banquo suppresses his own dark thoughts about the witch's prophecies, choosing not to act on them. Again, this showing that he doesn't indulge in this unchecked ambition, and he is restrained. Front to front, bring thou fiend to Scotland and myself. So this is what Macduff is saying. So remember, Macduff as well is the one who ends up beheading Macbeth in the end. And Macduff's desire to confront Macbeth comes from a place of righteous vengeance, so kind of getting back, payback, and loyalty to Scotland, not self-interest. So again, he's not acting out this unchecked ambition in self-interest, but he's doing it to restore order. And then how it adapts to other themes. So the reason why I've kind of put this here is this point is obviously more about ambition. I'm going to show you that even if a question more about violence, it doesn't have to say like how is violence presented, but something more about violence, you can still link ambition. So example, violence is pursued because of this unchecked ambition. Really simply, we can see that violence links this whole idea of unchecked ambition. The reason that violence is pursued is because of unchecked ambition. So we could make that link. So kind of thinking in the exam, if you did get a question on violence, you think, okay, you could actually use this point about ambition, then use your technique and analysis from Macbeth and then link it. That's kind of how you could think through it, being like, okay, which key theme could this link to, and which character do I want to use my quote and analysis for? And then guilt, the inevitable downfall of guilt because of this unchecked ambition. So we can see as a result of this unchecked ambition, and particularly through Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, that it results in their downfall and they become consumed with guilt. And then also the supernatural. Unchecked ambition is easier to manipulate and more susceptible to malevolent supernatural powers. Malevolent means evil. And of course, we do see that with Macbeth. And then point or key idea number 2 is that the psychological consequences of immoral actions often manifest as internal torment, especially when characters are unable to escape the guilt caused by their decisions. So we can see the psychological consequences. So this is more a point about guilt and the idea of the psychological ramifications, which is another fancy word for saying consequences. It manifests as this internal torment, how they're mentally battling this internal turmoil and this conflict because of the actions they've committed. Even if they've been blinded by their ambition, they know it is immoral. They know it is a sin, and therefore they have this unshakable guilt. So with Macbeth, of course, we see his guilt after Duncan's murder, and it causes hallucinations and mental instability. We even see it as well before he kills King Duncan. He's having the hallucinations of the dagger. The classic quote, "Is this a dagger which I see before me?" That's even before he's committed regicide, which is killing of the king, showing that mental instability and how he's consumed by guilt. Lady Macbeth, although she appears confident, her suppressed guilt later resurfaces and overwhelms her. So we get this idea that in the beginning, Lady Macbeth is more strong. She fights off this guilt. But of course, it does resurface and it completely overwhelms her afterwards. Banquo, he is a symbol of moral integrity, and his ghost represents Macbeth's guilt and inability to repress what he has done. So of course, Banquo is murdered by murderers sent by Macbeth. Macbeth doesn't actually personally murder him, but he gets him killed. So again, he is a symbol of this moral integrity, this righteousness, not indulging in this unchecked ambition. So his ghost, again, represents that guilt and is another physical manifestation of the internal torment we see with Macbeth. Macduff, he experiences a different kind of guilt, survivor's guilt, and grief over his family, which fuels his righteous desire for justice. So we can kind of see that there is this different kind of guilt, survivor's guilt, because Macduff's family are killed by Macbeth. Macbeth does a whole lot of killing. This guy is killing off everybody left, right, and centre. Basically leaves nobody left. Because Banquo, he's like, hey, this guy, he wants to get my place. let's kill him off, even though it's his bestie. Macduff's wary of me, let's get him killed. And then he gets murderers sent to Macduff's house. He didn't want to get his hands dirty for that one, did he? Because he was like, I'm already really messed up, so I'm not going to kill anyone else. So he gets murderers sent to Macduff's house to go kill Macduff. Macduff isn't there, so then the murderers end up killing Macduff's family. So he has this real desire for justice. We see this vengeance, this real want to restore order, not only the order of Scotland, but he wants to restore order in the fact that Macbeth has literally killed his family. He's not best pleased. And then in terms of evidence, "Oh, full of scorpions is my mind, dear wife." This message reveals how guilt and paranoia have begun to consume Macbeth's thoughts, showing his psychological deterioration. And we can see this idea of the scorpions in his mind, thinking about how he's now been completely consumed by this guilt. And we can link it again as a result of this unchecked ambition. Lady Macbeth, out damn spot, out I say. Both of these quotes here are really used quotes, which is fine. But you want to make sure when you do use these quotes, you don't use the same analysis or have the same ideas as everyone else, because you want to draw yourself apart. So thinking about how you can be a bit more critical. If you're a Light Pub member, using the critical analysis of our RAD or using the more insightful techniques we pick out just to put yourself apart from the masses, because you don't want to write the same thing as everyone else. Banquo, thou cannot say I did it, never shake thy glory locks at me. And this is Act 3, Scene 4. Macbeth sees Banquo's ghost as a projection of his guilt, unable to face the consequences of his actions. And of course, Macbeth does see this at the banquet. He sees the ghost in front of people, and we can see this again, a physical manifestation of his guilt. Macduff, all my pretty ones, did you say all? So this is his grief over the murder of his family, and he carries a sense of guilt for not protecting them, channeling his pain into a just cause. Saying it's a just cause because it is rightful for him to kill Macbeth. Macbeth's violence is unjustified, so he doesn't have a good reason for it. He's just killing everyone out of self-interest, whereas Macduff has a good reason. He's trying to obviously restore the order of Scotland, which Macbeth has completely tipped on his head, and also trying to get that kind of vengeance back for his family. Then how it adapts to other themes. You'll notice there's a lot of overlaps because I'm showing you how you can really link this. Of course, guilt is the emotional consequence of ambition that has gone too far. So as we said earlier, we can kind of link it, even if a question on ambition did come up, you can still link it to guilt and how guilt is a result of being overly ambitious. Violence is the emotional aftermath of violence, often results in guilt that destroys characters from within. So again, even if the question was on violence, we could still link it in the fact that guilt is a consequence of violence. Again, you can kind of see, you can kind of link guilt as a consequence of any key theme, like it's a consequence of being overly ambitious. It's a consequence of violence. And that's how you can kind of link it. Then you just think about, okay, what is the quote and analysis I've got for Macbeth that I've been chosen, my techniques and my analysis, how I've linked it to context. And then you've already pre-learned that. And all you've got to do is just adapt it to the question. And then supernatural elements like Banquo's ghost act as manifestations of guilt and punishment for sinful deeds. So you can kind of see that this supernatural element in one side about the witches, but also looking at the supernatural element in the way that the ghosts are presented and the supernatural element of that as well. And then our last overall idea that we can kind of link is deception functions as a recurring motif. A motif is a symbol or theme throughout Macbeth, used by characters to manipulate appearances, conceal ambition, and secure power. So we get this real key theme of deception. Now, motif is a fancy way of saying a key theme that is throughout. So a little top tip as well. That is a really impressive technique to pull out because it shows you're having to talk about the whole play, which examiners love. We don't just want to talk about one moment in play. We want to talk about like larger moments. So it's used to manipulate appearances. So how one appears versus their true reality. We see this recur throughout the whole of Macbeth. So Macbeth, he pretends to be loyal while secretly plotting Duncan's murder. We see, of course, he has been promoted at the time. So he was the Thane of Glamis, which was just his title. Then he became Thane of Cawdor, which King Duncan promoted him due to his good work in battle. But of course, he's pretending to be loyal to King Duncan, although he is plotting to get him murdered. Lady Macbeth, she conceals her ruthlessness behind a mask of femininity and hospitality. Of course, she is the ultimate deceiver. She is a woman. She can deceive everybody with her external looks, even though she is this barbaric, so this kind of brutal and heinous, meaning wicked, individual. Banquo, he suspects Macbeth of foul play, but keeps his thoughts hidden, playing it safe. So you can see this idea that although Banquo isn't deceptive in the way we see with Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, he still is deceptive to a degree because he does not tell Macbeth how much he's questioning him. He does question him on it and question his intentions, but he tries to play it safe, knowing that Macbeth is a dangerous individual. Macduff, he uses deception strategically by withholding his allegiance from Macbeth and secretly aligning with Malcolm. He isn't as much of a key character for showing this, but we can definitely see to a degree he is more strategic in his allegiance and him allying with Malcolm, because remember Malcolm is the son of Duncan. So remember King Duncan is the one who got killed by Macbeth. He fled because he was like, I don't want to get killed like my dad. And then they formed this alliance together where they brought down Macbeth. And then the witches, they speak in riddles and half-truths to deceive Macbeth, manipulating his sense of control over fate. So we can see again, the witches really embody this motif of deception because the way they present things to Macbeth isn't always wholly true. And then evidence to suggest this. False face must hide what the false heart doth know. So he basically acknowledges to succeed in his plot, he must hide his murderous intentions behind a facade of loyalty. Facade is a mask. So basically Macbeth is like, I must deceive in order to carry this out successfully. Lady Macbeth looked like the innocent flower but be the serpent under it. She advises deception as a tool to gain power, hiding but evil beneath a sweet exterior. Again, really encapsulating, she uses this as one of her tools of manipulation and encourages Macbeth to similarly do that. Banquo, I fear thou playest most foully for it. Banquo suspects Macbeth, but he keeps his thoughts private, showing that he too withholds the truth, though for self-preservation. So again, he is withholding the truth to some degree. He is acknowledging and is confronting that Macbeth has played foully for it, as in he's become king not through legitimate means. So he's not the legit king, he's not the rightful king, but he still withholds for his own safety. But it doesn't work because Banquo does get killed. And Macduff, fit to govern? No, not to live. So after testing Malcolm's integrity through deceptive questioning, Macduff reveals his true purpose is to fight Macbeth. So there's this scene between Macduff and Malcolm, and they're basically testing each other's loyalty because, of course, they're a bit like, who can we trust now? Because Macbeth they did trust, and now he's gone and killed King Duncan. So they kind of question each other's loyalty, but then Macduff really does reveal that he wants to bring down Macbeth. And the witches, none of woman born shall harm Macbeth. So the witches manipulate Macbeth with ambiguous language. Ambiguous means it's not very specific or very clear. That appears reassuring, but it's actually misleading, luring him into a false sense of invincibility. So this is really interesting because what the witches do is when Macbeth comes to them, so remember in Act 1 they come to him, but in Act 4 he goes to them. And he's demanding all these things of the witches because he's got a bit too big for his boots. He's now become overly confident, and now they are there to intentionally deceive him. So they're there to be very ambiguous. So ambiguous is meaning unclear. They're being a bit vague in their language. And they want to lure him into this false sense of invincibility because he's thinking after this, well, everyone's born of a woman, so that's fine. Then I'm fine. I'm not going to be killed, right? But actually, Macduff, remember the one who Macbeth got his family killed, who ends up beheading him in the end. Macduff actually wasn't born from a woman naturally. He was born from a C-section, meaning he was cut open by his mother. So therefore, illustrating that he was not born from a woman. So it was very tactical from the witches to use that language. And then lastly, how it adapts to other key themes. So ambition, characters deceive others to fulfill their ambition, masking their true motive. So again, anything to do with ambition, you could definitely do a paragraph on this and about how they use it as a tool to fulfill their ambition. Guilt, deception contributes to inner guilt as lies must be sustained and sins hidden. So of course we can see that anything to do with deception or trying to appear in one way versus the reality, it leads to again this internal torment because they are committing these sins. And lastly, linking to power as well. Deception becomes a political tool used to gain and protect power, but it often backfires. So we can see, of course, it's a means to an end. Macbeth utilizes deception as a tool to gain more power, again, to fulfill his ambition, but it backfires because ultimately it does lead to his demise and also only leads to temporary power. He's not permanently powerful. He doesn't get to, endure being king and live this long reign. It's short and sweet, right? He comes on the throne as quick as he comes on, he falls off. So it really illustrates that, again, it backfires in the end. So if you did like this video, guys, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you did want all of this in detail, of course, we have it on the Light Up Hub. The last minute revision video is super helpful for anything last minute, as it's called. And yeah, I will see you on the next video.